What is up, Beam Team? It is your boy, King Beam, and welcome back to another episode of the King Beam Yaps About Movies TV show. Today's topic is French New Wave cinema, my favorite cinema, because it's so fantastically gorgeous and great and interesting and poignant. I don't know if that's the right word. I don't know. I don't have enough words to use, but cinema has evolved through countless movements and waves and artistic revolutions, but none of them has ever captured the imagination. My imagination. I'm reading my script wrong. The way that the French New Wave has. Okay, even now, more than 60 years after these films first appeared, they still feel so electric and wild and bold and intimate and beautiful and alive and gorgeous and fantastic. No other era of film feels as great as the French New Wave does. To me, it's not just a style, it's an attitude. It was a group of young filmmakers ripping cinema away from studios and handing it back to the artist. They weren't scared of breaking rules. They were thrilled to break the rules. They weren't worried about pleasing their critics. They wanted to make art that felt personal, honest, risky, and real. And that is why the French New Wave is so great. Now, if you don't know, the French New Wave was a cinematic revolution beginning in the late 1950s in which young filmmakers rejected the old studio system and reinvented how movies were made. And instead of building elaborate sets and relying on heavy equipment, they took lightweight 16mm cameras into the streets of France and shot films guerrilla style. As Richard Newport writes, the New Wave celebrated artistic rebellion and an eagerness to explode traditional cinematic boundaries. They wanted cinema that felt immediate and personal, not polished, predictable, or tied to tradition. And I think that I like the French New Wave because the way that the directors filmed these films feels a lot like what I have to do as a filmmaker right now. I am still in college, so the way I have to make films is I don't have elaborate sets. I don't have a whole bunch of money. I have a camera, I have my friends, and I have a dream, and we just go places and shoot. I do a lot of one takes, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm a big fan of one takes. Even I'm gonna preach it out into the world. I will make it as a director one day, but even in the future, I think I'm gonna stick with one take cinema because it just looks so beautiful. But I think I just relate to them in a way with my filmmaking. It's just a cool way to make films. You don't have to get all fancy with it. Just go out on the streets and start filming stuff. And post-war French cinema was dominated by the tradition of quality, which, it privileged big budget, literary, studio-bound films. And Francois Truffaut, I hope I'm saying his name right. I'm pretty sure that's how my professor say it. Anyway, he attacked this style in his iconic essay, A Certain Tendency of the French Cinema, arguing that such films lacked originality and honest personal expression. Young cinephiles like Godard, Truffaut, Romer, and Chabrol, I hope I'm saying these French names right, many writing for Cahiers du Cinéma, I know I said that right, were desperate to overturn that system. And so they abandoned tripods for handheld cameras. They abandoned sound stages for real sets, real apartments, real streets. They abandoned polished scripts for improvisation, and they abandoned classical editing for jump cuts, mismatched continuity, and raw spontaneity. And this filmmaking style made filmmaking feel more like a personal act of artistic expression rather than a product manufactured by a big studio. And I feel like you can connect that to films today. I feel like some films you see feel more personal to the filmmaker making them, whereas some films feel like a product of a studio. I'm not going to name any names here, but no hate, no shade today. I'm not throwing any shade at anyone specific, but if you know, you know. The French New Wave was just electrifying because the filmmakers were willing to do anything. They experimented with structure, pacing, sound, editing, narrative, and visual style, and their mistakes stayed in the films, and their improvisations became iconic, and their risks became the foundation of modern film language. One of the reasons the French New Wave means so much to me is that the filmmakers absolutely did not care about pleasing their critics or the producers or the institutions, or they didn't care about pleasing anyone who was going to watch the film. They didn't ask permission to innovate. They just did it. Jean-Luc Godard, one of my favorite directors of all time, the movement's boldest rule breaker, he famously said that more or less I'm always saying, let's do what has not been done. And I think that we need to see more of that in films today. Let's do something that hasn't been done before. And I feel like this perfectly captures his rebellious approach to cinema. And I love it. Let's just do stuff, you know? That's why I think I enjoy, I'm going back to the one takes, but I think that's why I love a good one take so much. This one director who watched one of my first ever short films said I used too many one takes. And I kind of strayed away from that in my second short film. But when I was making my third, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to break the rules. Let's do a one take. I really enjoy one takes. I'm going to go off on a tangent here. One takes are so incredibly gorgeous. There's this one take sequence in Extraction 2. I believe it's like 24 minutes long, but it's gorgeous. Chris Hemsworth gets set on fire and stuff like that. The Bear filmed an entire episode of their show in a one take. One takes are just cinematic genius. You don't have time to get another take. You got to get it right in that moment. You get one time to get it perfect, and it's just a beautiful part of what makes cinema. And I'm gonna keep doing it. I should make a video on the one take. The Studio, if you've seen that show, they did a great episode about a oneer, which was shot in a oneer. Anyway, let's get back to the main topic. The films, they felt handcrafted, like peeking into someone's journals or their dreams, and the director's personalities are present in every frame. And unlike studio films designed for mass appeal, new wave movies feel intimate, confessional, and truthful. They aren't manufactured, they feel lived. And independent filmmaking as we know it wouldn't exist without the French New Wave. Tarantino's dialogue, Linklater's realism, Sofia Coppola's dreaminess, the Safdie brothers' chaos, all of it draws from this era. So many directors we know and love today draw from French New Wave cinema. And I just want to talk about some of my favorite French New Wave films because I can and I will, and I hope you guys enjoy. Let's talk about Breathless. Breathless is so great. By the way, if you haven't seen any of these films before, please go watch them. If you love cinema, if you love movies, go watch these films. I'm not going to do any spoilers here. I'm just going to talk about how great these films are. And it's going to be done in a way in which no spoilers are said because I made a script and I'm not just going off the dome. So everything's going to work out in the end. So let's talk about Breathless. All right. Breathless is infamous for its groundbreaking jump cuts, which slice through scenes abruptly to create a fractured kinetic flow. And before this film, jump cuts were considered mistakes, but Godard turned them into an aesthetic. Breathless permanently altered the global language of editing by demonstrating how cutting could express energy rather than continuity. And Michel Poicard, I really hope I'm getting these French names right, played by Jean-Paul Belmondo, is one of cinema's great anti-heroes. He's charming, he's reckless, he's unpredictable, and Patricia, who's played by Jean Seberg, is equally as magnetic. She drifts between innocence and self-possession, and their relationship feels spontaneous, like real life captured accidentally on camera, and their scenes feel like unscripted life. And Breathless made filmmaking feel accessible. Young filmmakers saw it and thought, I could go out tomorrow and make this. And that's the beauty of the French New Wave. It's just so inspiring. And Godard, who made Breathless, I don't know if I said that, but Jean-Luc Godard, he made Breathless because obviously he did, because he's great. He also made another film called Période le Fou, also great. I feel like this is his most poetic film, probably. You can do a lot of analyzation just based on the color of the film. It's also his most rebellious and dreamlike, in my opinion. It's a road movie filtered through philosophy and comic books and pop art and existential despair. And this film looks like a moving painting. Literally, it's saturated with reds and blues and yellows, and we can get a lot into color theory. I've done it before. Watch the La La Land video. I feel like it's my best video to date. But these colors transform scenes into surreal emotional landscapes, and the color palette doesn't just decorate the film, it speaks the film's narrative to your eyes. It reveals mood, tension, and the psychological states of all the characters, and every frame feels like it's designed to provoke feeling rather than realism. And this film just captures everything I love about the French New Wave. It's freedom, it's visual experimentation, non-linear storytelling. It's just putting your emotions into a film and not caring what anyone thinks about it. And that's why I love it. I feel like if you've seen Pulp Fiction, for example, that probably got inspiration from Père Le Fou. I know that's kind of a wild jump if you've seen the two films, but I feel like you could say a lot about how things got inspired by things. Anyway, the next film I want to touch on is The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. I also made a video essay on this film, so you should probably go watch it. I think it was pretty good. If not, I'm gonna rewatch it and I'll make another one because I love this film, and I might as well make another video essay on it. But Jacques Demy's The Umbrellas of Cherbourg is a perfect example of how the French New Wave could also be delicate, emotional, and romantic while also being innovative. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first musical released in France. I think. I didn't back up my sources. That's an idea off the dome. I'm like 90% sure my professor told me that when I took my French cinema class, and if she lied to me, blame her, but I think she said that. Anyway, this entire film is sung, and not in the theatrical Broadway style of musical, but it is in a continuous flow of musical dialogue. Every line in this film is sung. Everything in this film is music, but it feels natural and emotional. And I feel like this choice creates a dreamlike atmosphere where music becomes the character's emotional expression. In every detail of the production design, the wallpaper, the dresses, the storefronts is color coordinated to reflect mood, just like La La Land, which La La Land draws inspiration from The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. It's literally the same film, but I talk about it in the video. Anyway, the story explores how young love is challenged by war, distance, and adulthood. It's so real and sad and beautiful, and the music is amazing. And Genevieve and Guy's heartbreak is rendered by gently but devastating music. Oh man, the final scene it's pure cinema. It's absolute cinema, as the kids say nowadays. You gotta watch The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. Elevator to the Gallows. This is a very jazzy film. Miles Davis improvised the soundtrack to this film. Miles Davis, legendary jazz player. He made the soundtrack for this film, and he improvised it while watching the film in a recording studio, and he just kind of made the music on the spot, and the result is this haunting, lonely, nocturnal mood that wraps the entire movie in an atmosphere. It feels organic, like the music is breathing with the characters, and the plot unravels with perfect irony. A man's murder plan fails because he's trapped in an elevator, while two young lovers steal his car and commit crimes by accident. It's a great plot. The film becomes a study in fate, mistakes, and human fragility. And it's shot on real Paris streets at night, so it looks beautiful, and the film captures these glowing neon signs and wet pavement and dark boulevards, creating this noir world that feels lived in, not constructed, and it's beautiful. And the last film I have on this list, which I wanted to touch on, is Belle de Jour. This film, my goodness, I forget what the actress's name is who plays in this film, but she also plays Genevieve in The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. I don't know who the costume designer was for Belle de Jour, but I think I put in my Letterboxd review, all her fits eat. She's putting on a new dress in every scene, and all the fits hit. She's a fashion icon. Buñuel's Belle de Jour brings surrealism into the French New Wave in a way that's elegant and provocative and psychologically rich. Séverine, she leads a double life. You know, she's a respectable housewife by morning, but a brothel worker in the afternoon. And the film constantly slips between fantasy and reality, forcing the audience to question what's internal in her mind and what's external, what's really happening in the real world. And Buñuel destabilizes the viewer's sense of what's real or imagined, creating a uniquely dreamlike film. And it does a really good job of keeping you on your toes, because it does this unique thing where the main character is having a lot of dreams, and you don't know, once you get to the end of the film, you don't know whether this is a dream or is this real life. And I think that that's a perfect ending, allowing the audience to really come up with the ending themselves. Leave it up to viewer interpretation. And sometimes that's a little tacky, but I think here it works. And Belderger proves that the French New Wave wasn't just about handheld cameras and rebellious editing choices, but it was also about confronting taboo subjects and internal psychology with bravery. The French New Wave literally did everything. And at the end of the day, the French New Wave isn't just important, it's inspiring. It reminds me that cinema is an art form built on risk and passion and experimentation. These films show that imperfection can be beautiful, that breaking rules can make masterpieces, and that art is strongest when it's personable. The movement is my favorite era of film because it represents everything I love about the medium: honesty, creativity, and rebellion. Being vulnerable, being free to just do whatever you want artistically. And these films, all the films I talked about today, just will always remind me of why I fell in love with cinema. And I think you all should watch these films. The French New Wave is great. Shout out my friend Luca. There's this film called Les Samurai, which is also a French New Wave film, which I haven't seen yet, but you should probably go watch that one because he said it's good and he knows ball. He's seen over 1,200 films. So obviously he knows what he's talking about. But if you are still here watching this video, thank you so much. I appreciate you for coming and spending these last, what says 18 minutes with me. Go watch some French New Wave cinema. Sorry, I had something in my nose. I feel like I sound nasally. My goodness, I'm not sick, but I sound nasally. Go watch some French New Wave cinema. If you feel led, please go watch my Umbrellas of Cherbourg video essay, and then that should lead you to watch my La La Land essay. I keep telling people in all my videos, watch the La La Land video essay. I don't think my videos get better than that. Did I peak with the La La Land video essay? Maybe. And I'm okay with that peak because it's a great video, and I think I shined a lot of light on the subject of the film. And if you hate the film, I feel like I can make you love it. And that's just, you know, that's just what I do when I make my video essays. I challenge your ideas as a viewer. But yeah, if you're still here, thank you for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe and turn on post notifications. Yes, please drop a like on the video. It really helps me to get pushed into the algorithm so that more people like yourselves can also watch the video, and then you all can like talk in the comments about the video. And a lot of you slander me. I know I say you know a lot. That's my favorite filler word, but you know, you can slander me in the comments, or you can have a constructive conversation about the French New Wave. Thank you again for being here and watching my video. I love you. Have a great day. Watch some French New Wave. Yeah, watch the movies. Peace out.